Oiji Mi is one of the most popular Michelin-starred Korean restaurants in New York City. The establishment offers a 5-course prix menu for $150. The selection featured numerous mouth-watering and luxurious dishes that I just had to try.
Today I'm here in New York City at Madison Square Park, and the weather right now is absolutely flawless. But I would like to talk about the dinner I actually had today, which was incredible. I went to the Korean Michelin-starred restaurant known as Oiji Mi. However, I was actually planning to go to a different Korean Michelin-starred restaurant. Originally, I wanted to go to Jua, which is actually right around the same area as Oiji Mi, but their reservations just didn't cut it for me. Yeah, I really procrastinated when it came to getting a reservation for Jua, but it was really no problem because all I really wanted was to dine at a nice restaurant, and I certainly got that tonight with Oiji Mi. Now, of course, I was interested in Oiji Mi because of its Michelin star, but I was definitely intrigued by their menu. You see, they serve this sort of choose-your-own-adventure prix selection. In total, it's 5 courses, and it sort of seems like a good compromise between a tasting menu and an a la carte selection. And their price, at least in terms of New York City one Michelin-starred restaurants, is one of the more affordable ones out there. And most importantly, their food just looked incredible, so I knew I had to go. And with that being said, this was my dinner at Oiji Mi.
Oiji Mi is located right at the edge of the Flatiron district in New York City. However, the restaurant really got its start in the East Village at a spot called Oiji. In turn, Oiji Mi was meant to be a sort of step up from the original establishment where more luxurious ingredients could be served. The restaurant is the product of Chef Brian Kim, who opened Oiji Mi back in 2022. Later, Kim also opened Bom, which is located under the same roof as Oiji Mi. In fact, I even got a bit of a glimpse at Bom after I finished my dinner. Both Bom and Oiji Mi have been awarded Michelin stars, and both have maintained them to this day. Without a doubt, I was incredibly excited for my dinner at Oiji Mi, so I arrived to the restaurant for my reservation right when it opened at 5 p.m. for dinner. Upon checking in, I was greeted by Juwan, who used to work at Per Se and actually remembered me from when I dined there. It's a small world indeed. After getting seated, I took in the space. Oiji Mi has a modern and comforting look and feel to it, but it still maintained a level of elegance. I particularly liked how wide open the restaurant felt, and to put it simply, I thought that the establishment had a good atmosphere. Once I was settled, I began to contemplate the menu. Oiji Mi serves a 5-course prix menu, although the first course is the same for everyone, but the other 4 were up to me. There was a good variety, and frankly, everything sounded intriguing. It was tough to decide. The menu has a $150 price tag, but there were a couple of supplemental course upgrades along with some supplement bites. I actually did upgrade one of my courses, which partly influenced my drink order. Oiji Mi does offer beverage pairings along with wine by the glass, but I felt like getting a cocktail. As a result, I decided to order the drink known as It All Goes Awry. It contained Brennivin Rye, Campari, Vermouth, Omija, and Shiso. My motivation for choosing that cocktail was its price. It was the most affordable on the menu. I figured that if I was getting a supplement, I can at least save a few bucks with my drink. That was my compromise, and every dollar counts. In fact, I didn't even really know what the beverage contained until I got it, as I ordered very quickly with my focus being on the price. I just knew that it was a cocktail, it contained alcohol. That was basically my criteria at that point. Luckily, it proved to be a good drink, although it really reminded me of another cocktail which I couldn't put my finger on. I asked my server Keely, who was fantastic by the way, and she suggested that perhaps I was thinking of a Negroni, which was exactly it. And just like when I have a Negroni, the first sip is never the best. It's the type of cocktail that builds up and gets better as you drink. For me, that first sip tasted a bit like Campari infused cough syrup, but like I said, that drink grew on me, and by the time I finished, I was quite happy with my choice. Soon enough, it was time to eat, as I was presented first with a towel to cleanse my hands, along with the initial course and a complimentary bite that I really appreciated. First though, I turned my attention to the main dish, which is the one course everyone in the restaurant gets. There were 3 different bites and they all were looking good. I started off by trying the beef tartare, which contains celeriac, pickled radish, and caviar. Now that was a nice bite. The beef was soft and tender, and I loved the saltiness from the caviar. Next up was the giranjim, which is a dish made with steamed eggs. There was also spring peas, candied anchovies, and trout roe within the creation. That was an excellent dish. There was just so much going on with it, from the sheer variety of textures to the mix of flavors. Out of the 3 bites on that plate, the giranjim was hands down my favorite. Finally, there was the spotted prawn to try, which also contained gochujaro, green apple pearl, and yuja. That proved to be another solid creation with a satisfying but well-balanced spice. Overall, that was a solid first course. Next, I turned my attention to the bite that was very generously given, which was the caviar donut. It's a simple creation consisting of what seems to be one of the restaurant's capsule donuts and caviar. That was extraordinary. The sweet, chewy donut combined with the salty caviar equated to be one of the best caviar dishes that I've had so far this year. Now, I was having a bit of a rough day beforehand, but that donut turned it all around. Caviar donuts are clearly the solution to many of life's problems, and I was feeling good. Next up was the first course that I got to pick, and I went with the spicy barbecue squid, which contained green strawberries, tomatillo, and dubu. Visually, I can't say that it's the most striking dish, but in terms of flavor, that was another matter entirely. I was instructed to make sure that I got all of the components together for each bite, and the result was a vibrant and delicious dish that ticked all the boxes. There was spice, sweetness, and a touch of acidity. The squid was perfectly cooked, it was nice and tender, and had a satisfying spice, although it was by no means something that would have me constantly reaching for my water glass. Nevertheless, that second course was nicely balanced and an utter delight to eat. Next up was a pleasant surprise, as I was very generously given a complimentary cocktail, which I was of course very grateful for. The drink was called In Season, and it contained Capovilla Grappa de Bassano, Peach Lambic, Aperitivo, Pinot de Charente, and Charred Blood Orange. First off, the little garnish on the drink was absolutely delicious, and the cocktail itself was fantastic. It was so refreshing and had a wonderful sweet peach flavor. Out of the 2 cocktails I had that evening, that was definitely the better one. At about the same time that I received the cocktail, I was presented with my third course, which was the Oiji bowl. The dish contained sea urchin, spotted prawn, oiji, ikura, and seaweed rice, and it looked beautiful. The bowl was also the supplement course I got, which carried an additional $35 price tag. Now, I rarely get supplements, mainly for the cost factor, plus the other 2 dishes that were offered sounded great as well, but the Oiji bowl is a signature of the restaurant, so I had to try it. After mixing everything in the bowl together, I was rewarded with a truly spectacular bite that was both comforting and yet luxurious. The rice on the bottom of the bowl was nice and earthy, combined with the creamy sea urchin, the sweet plum shrimp, and the briny pop from the roe. That course was top tier. In fact, that dish has made it onto my running list of the best courses that I've had all year. It was excellent and worth the price of the supplement. Although, I'm not the biggest fan of when restaurants have their signature dish as a supplement, but it's somewhat understandable with Oiji Mi at least due to the costly ingredients of the bowl. Overall, that dish was truly special. Next up was the main course. I got the sea bass with octopus and crispy rice, which was in a truffle seafood broth. The dish looked great. It was definitely on the more rustic side in terms of appearance, but nevertheless, I was eager to give that one a try, and I wasn't disappointed. That fish was wonderful. It was perfectly cooked, nice and tender, and an utter delight to eat. all of the other elements of the dish were on the mark as well. The octopus was perfectly cooked, and that crispy rice added a nice crunch, which equated to some great textural variation. I particularly enjoyed that broth, which was super rich, had a slight spice, and was just jam-packed with flavor. Now, even though that dish had a rustic appearance, its execution was what you would expect from a fine dining restaurant, but yet it was still comforting to eat. I loved it. After finishing, it was time for dessert. I got the Chapsule donuts with Gruyere, raclette, sweet rice, and creme fraiche ice cream. Keely said it was her favorite dessert, and it was a dish that I knew I was going to get before I even stepped foot in the restaurant because it's donuts. I love donuts. In fact, I even have a shirt that says, "I love donuts." That dish did not disappoint. It was perfection. First off, Chapsule donuts are donuts made with a glutinous rice flour, which gives them a chewy, sort of mochi-like texture. The exterior, however, still has a slight crisp. Oiji Mi's donuts were just perfect. In terms of texture and flavor, they were flawless. The donuts were also warm, and combined with the cool ice cream and the bit of crumble, it equated to be one of the best desserts that I've had all year. My experience at Oiji Mi couldn't have ended on a higher note, but unfortunately my experience ended, and it was time for the bill. The check totaled to $222.11, but with my $50 tip, I spent just over $272. Before I left, however, Juwan actually invited me to get a peek of Bowl, which looked amazing, and I will definitely have to dine there in the future, but for that night at least, I was content with my experience at Oiji Mi.
So that was one fine meal and an overall excellent experience. First off, that was very nice of the restaurant for giving me that incredible caviar bite and that bonus cocktail plus the tour of bomb. I mean, I don't think I'll ever get used to being fussed over like that. I was certainly very grateful for it, but like I've said in the past, no matter what a restaurant does, I will always be sharing my honest opinion. Now, having said that, I really don't have any complaints with the Oiji Mi. I had a great meal there. Every course was delicious. In terms of my favorite course, I think it's a tie between the Oiji Bowl and the donuts. I mean, they're just two really different things, so it's kind of hard to say one is better than the other. I mean, I do tend to like more savory things, so I'd probably say the Oiji Bowl is better, but I mean, those donuts were literally one of the best desserts I've had this whole year. Oh, I forgot about the donut and caviar bite at the start of my meal. That was heavenly. Now, I wish they sold that supplement by the piece because as it stands right now, it's $50 for two, but as a single person, I would just like to try one of them, and if it was $25, I probably would have gotten it. So having said that, I am very grateful for getting the chance to try that bite because it was delicious. Now, as you've probably imagined, I am not stuffed, but I kind of expect that with these fine dining Michelin-starred restaurants. Overall, I'm satisfied. One of the best things about traditional Western Michelin-starred meals is the bread course, because with the bread, you can kind of rely on that to help fill you up. I mean, when I was at Danielle, I really carb-loaded with that meal, which was overall excellent. But still, like I said, I was overall very satisfied with my meal and experience at Oiji Mi. They serve great food and I think provide pretty good overall value, at least for a New York City Michelin-starred restaurant. Although when it comes to the subject of value, at least for Korean Michelin-starred restaurants in New York City, I would still say Mari is the best in that category. To sum it up, I had a phenomenal time at Oiji Mi tonight, and I literally had some of the best bites of the entire year there today. Without question, I will definitely be returning to Oiji Mi, and I will certainly be visiting Bomb.